To order, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And with that, Cody, could you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, sir, I can. Nancy Agee, Reggie Agarwal, Jim Chang,
Here.
Steve Cummings,
Here.
Ben Davenport, Senator Deeds, Cliff Fleet,
Here.
Haywood Fralin. Haywood, you're muted.
He's here.
I see him. Haywood, I'm gonna swing back. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. I'm here.
There he is.
Thank
All right.
you, Mr. Fralin.
Sorry about that.
Leah Framel.
Here.
Great. Kenneth Johnson. Delegate Kilgore.
Here.
John King.
Here.
Senator Lucas.
I just saw her come in.
She just came in.
Just cut your camera.
Senator
Hello?
Lucas. There we go.
Yes.
How you doing, Senator Lucas?
Doing fine. Operator error here.
Yeah, that's my excuse. You can't use that.
Delegate Maldonado. Okay. Senator McDougal.
Here.
Secretary Karen Merrick.
Present.
Emily O'Quinn. John Peterson.
Here.
Boab Creedham.
Here.
I can hear you, but I guess I'm back.
You're back.
Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can.
Wonderful.
Speaker Scott.
You know, I jumped out. I don't know. I just dropped out twice.
Mr. Stottlemyre.
Here.
And Delegate Torian.
Here.
Great.
Where's my mute button?
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
Great. Thanks very much, Cody. All right. First item on the agenda is a public comment. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for comments from the public. Cody, can you please recognize any members of the public who would like to make public comments?
Giving it just a second. Mr. Vice Chair, I don't see anybody who seems to want to make live public comment.
All right, great. Do we have any written comments that were submitted ahead of the meeting, Cody?
No, sir, we did not receive any ahead of time written comment.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll close the public comment period. Next on the agenda is a presentation. Today, we're very pleased to welcome a Go Virginia subgrantee to share an update on the great work being done in Southside Virginia in the site development and infrastructure space. Linda Green has served over 8 years as the executive director of the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to driving job growth in Southern Virginia. Please join me in welcoming Linda to talk about the work the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance is doing to bolster the inventory of shovel-ready sites in Southern Virginia, which is something obviously very important to our economic development. So Linda, welcome.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay?
Hear you fine.
I've elected not to use slides because I want to talk quickly and thank you all for what you're doing in site development and the difference it's making, not just in our region, but across the Commonwealth. I would be remiss if I didn't start off by saying I had the privilege of serving this past year as the president for the Virginia Economic Developers Association. And this is something that I'm sharing not just on behalf of my region, but on behalf of the state of Virginia, because you're making a tremendous difference. In 2021, we started the journey. Sorry. Can you hear me?
I'd like to just ask anybody who's not speaking, if you don't mind going on mute so Linda can go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks so much. In 2021, I started the journey with you all at looking at regional site development. When you think about Southern Virginia, we're on the North Carolina border, and we make up about 2% of the employment in the Commonwealth. So it's an area of Go Virginia that is sparsely populated compared to some, but I want to tell you the story that you're making, how you're making a difference with sites. When the speaker was in Danville, one of the things he did was to challenge us to think about the ROI. So I'm going to spend most of my time telling you all how you have leveraged funds and made a difference with the ROI of our area. Our funding came partially from Go Virginia, matched by Tobacco Commission for some of the work, as well as work that we had already done with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership to look at what sites had the most potential in our area. You funded us to look at 11 sites in industrial parks that reached all the way across the region, from Patrick County in a very small part of our area, but important. We started at the Rich Creek Industrial Park, almost at the Blue Ridge Parkway, went down that, offered the support to Martinsville Henry, who already had certifications, so didn't participate at this time, but also Pittsylvania County, the city of Danville, and the county of Halifax. Within that, we targeted 11 sites in industrial parks. From that, we started to work with getting the certifications. Like I said, our funding was matched by Tobacco Commission and the locality funding. All of the sites had been predetermined as having market potential by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. I'm going to spend most of my time telling you how this is not an instant process. Among these sites, we looked at the Southern Virginia Technology Park in Halifax. A little bit about what happened during this time. In that park, we certified sites at Tier 4 and Tier 5 levels after doing the engineering work. That raised their ranking from 2 to 4 or 5. At that point, they attracted Hyperion X into the industrial park. They already had a shell building, but as they attracted them, one of the sites that you'd raised the tier certification for became the adjoining site to show them that they could expand successfully. In addition to that, they expanded into another building, and Halifax has already started to work on a shell building on a site that was a Tier 5 site as a result of your certification. So this in one community. In addition to that, they increased their utility capacity to serve that park from the results of some of the things shown in the study. While that's going on, they moved to the Wilkins Park with you all's blessing. We shifted some money from one park that we proved did not need a transportation study that had been suggested. We shifted to another park in Halifax where they're starting another industrial park that will give them a heavy industry park. But while that's going on back in Danville, Ringgold Industrial Park East, you may have seen the announcement this past week on a site that you raised from a Tier 2 to a Tier 5, completed all studies. They have a pad site. Cambridge Paving Stones announced 55 jobs and $47.35 million investment on Friday of last week on one of the sites that you raised. Thank you so much, because I don't know that this would have happened had the work not been completed. Simultaneously, across the road in the Cyber Park, which is a very different kind of park, another site has been graded and is ready for development and has already shown to 5 prospects, including a letter of intent on that property now, as a result of raising it from a Tier 2 to a Tier 5 and them being able to complete the grading as they finished it. One of the other things that you did was allow us to shift some of the monies that were not used in Hurt, Virginia, because they sold one of their parks to a solar farm. You allowed us to shift that money and make sure that it was better utilized, and we shifted it to the Southern Virginia megasite. The Southern Virginia megasite was already certified, but it was near the end of that certification period. Some of the cultural resources needed to be looked at again and renewed. With your blessings, we did that. During that time, the Virginia Business Ready Sites program moved on one of the certified lots and did the grading afterwards. From there, we attracted our first anchor mega site tenant. And again, you asked for return on investment. That project, you all have heard, I'm sure, led to the announcement of our anchor mega site, Microporous. An 80-year-old lithium battery separator company came in with 2,015 jobs and over $1.3 billion in capital investment. Did Go Virginia do this? Not directly, but had we not had this funding for the preparation of these sites and moving them forward in a strategic way, I can't say that any of these things would be happening. I think the combination of the commitment from VEDP to help us with the marketing and original work before we get to the prospect, you're helping us with due diligence that helps us evaluate the site readiness in terms of engineering and due diligence, led us to utility improvements, led us to the next steps in marketing, and all these pieces intertwine to make a difference when we attract those companies. So I wanted to formally say thank you, because what may seem like a drop in the bucket is just the drop at the time that these rural localities need the rain to make this thrive in their communities. So that's a snapshot of return on investment. Since you invested this, we have certified 16 sites from Tier 2 to Tier 4. Now, recognize we took these industrial parks and made sure they were divided into sites appropriately with this funding. We raised 7 from Tier 2s to Tier 5s. And our parks, we raised 3 to Tier 4s and 2 to Tier 5s. That's real change on parks for the future of a region. I'm really pleased to say that when you look at the economic development across this region, while we may be small numbers in the percent of employment in the past, you're seeing this change rapidly. And I look at the investment in the last years as you have invested here, 7,823 jobs coming into the region and over $3.145 billion in capital investment. You don't normally hear those kinds of numbers in a rural area, and it's because you all are working across the state to team and partner to make a difference in strategic site development. Thank you.
Linda, thanks so much for sharing. And first of all, congratulations on the outstanding results. And secondly, thank you for recognizing that the strong collaboration between the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and very importantly, Go Virginia. This is how it is supposed to work. And also for specifically calling out the return on investment, and is a significant return on investment. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, and congratulations on the great success. And I know I can say on behalf of all of the Go Virginia board members that we are pleased and proud and excited to partner with you and continue to partner with you going forward. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're now going to go to the consent agenda. And in your board packets, you will find several items on the consent agenda, including minutes from the June and September board meetings. Resolutions commemorating 3 of the founding members of the Go Virginia State Board, Jim Dyke, Pietriggiani, and the late Senator Frank Ruff. Also included in the consent agenda are several technical updates to board policies, including updates to comply with legislative changes to match requirements and updates for additional clarity. Before we go forward with voting on the consent items, I would like to formally recognize and thank Jim Dyke, Pietriggiani, and Senator Frank Ruff for their outstanding service to the Go Virginia Board, and very importantly to the Commonwealth of Virginia. As you know, all 3 of these individuals have generously given their time and expertise to this board, and also so many other important civic endeavors during their long and illustrious careers. They are truly outstanding citizens of our Commonwealth, and I just want to formally thank them again and recognize them for their service. All right, we're going to vote on the consent agenda items in front of us as a block. At this time, is there a member who would like to remove any of the items in the consent agenda from the block vote. And Cody, will you let me know if anybody wants to remove anything? I can't see everybody.
Mr. Vice
All
Chair,
right.
I don't see anybody raising their hands or anything, so I think we're
Okay.
good.
All right, is there a motion to approve the items before us as recommended? I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, Terry Kilgore.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
John King, second.
Thank you, John, very much. All right, Cody, can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Nancy Ady. Reggie Agarwal. Slow Reggie, come on. Just want to make sure we catch that vote if you're here.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mute was on. Agreed.
Thank you. Jim Chang.
Agreed.
Secretary Steve Cummings.
Agreed.
Ben Davenport. Cray Deeds. Cliff Fleet.
Agreed.
Haywood Fralin.
Agreed.
Leah Framel.
Agreed.
Kenneth Johnson.
Agreed.
Delegate Kilgore.
Agreed.
John King.
Agree.
Senator Lucas.
Agree.
Delegate Maldonado.
Agree.
Senator McDougal.
Aye.
Secretary Merrick.
Agreed.
Emily O'Quinn. John Peterson.
Agreed.
Boad Creedum.
Agreed.
Speaker Scott. Todd Stottlemyre.
Agree?
And Delegate Torian.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the Deputy
Excuse me
Director's
just a second.
report. Yes,
Cody, could you count me as a yes?
Yes, sir. I apologize.
Secretary Slater is an aye. I like it. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Deputy Director's report, and for that, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah Dunnigan. Sarah?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before we get into the applications we're going to review here today, I want to take a few minutes to just provide an overview of our application submission process and the steps that the regional councils, our team, and the work groups that are gathered or organized at the state level, the time that we spend and the process that we use to ensure that projects that you receive at these meetings have adequate due diligence and review and are accompanied by informed staff recommendations. After you review these applications, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens after a grant award, again, to just make sure the continuum from project development to application receipt, review at various points at the regional and state level, how the applications come to you with the staff recommendations as they do, and then how we as a team monitor grant performance, outcome reporting, etc., through the process. So this is an illustration that really just describes the process. If we start at the top of this graphic, it really is inspired by the applicant and the project at the regional level. Technical assistance is provided by the support organization staff, and these are the individuals at the regional level that support the regional councils. My team also provides technical assistance, provides to pre-applications questions and inquiries, and provides review of any materials that may be being prepared. The big work really happens at the regional level. The regional councils have project review committees. They're evaluating each of these project proposals against the goals and strategies that are present in their respective growth and diversification plans. Once approved by the regional councils, they're then submitted to the state board for consideration. Now, DHCD, as the administering agency, receives these through a grant management system that we call CAMS. I'll talk to you about what that acronym means, but it does mean that we have a secure system to receive applications, all of the required attachments and materials, and then they're received and reviewed by my team. We're looking for adherence to state law, any board policy that's been developed, and any program guidelines that we've been directed to develop as the administering agency of the program. I think an important step here is the convening of a work group. And the work group really works as an aid and support to the Go Virginia State Board. It includes members of the Go Virginia State Board. And we would like to just recognize those members who have participated in the reviews in this most recent round and any previous round. It is a time commitment because we want to make sure that we give the rigorous review and really conversations with the regional councils and the subgrantees. It includes subject matter experts from sister agencies like VEDP, like VIPC, and other subject matter experts from industry as appropriate. So we really try to curate that work group to bring the best minds to the table as we review these applications. We invite the regional councils to do what we call a pitch, and that is using the magic of technology, an opportunity for the regional council leadership to speak to the importance of their application, and then the actual implementing entity to talk about their approach, the partnerships that are in place, and the process that will be used to deliver the outcomes and results. And just remember, the core performance outcomes for the Go Virginia program and the funding priorities are defined by the Go Virginia State Board. And so our application has been developed in a way to provide clarity and alignment to form and function, if you will, and to hopefully deliver the outcomes that the State Board and the program architects have indicated. Once that process occurs, all of these applications come to you in the form of a board summary. So I would like to remind folks that what you're seeing in these 1 or 2 page summaries are a fraction of the materials that the regional councils review as part of their process, and that we as staff and the work groups review. There are complete applications with full budgets, with letters of support, with match verification forms, and really all of the documentation required for the work group along with staff to make a staff recommendation. The state board, as the regional council does as well, really has 3 primary decisions to make: approve the application, deny it, or defer it. And you'll see that blue arrow, the deferral process simply sends that application to the regional council for additional work to either refine their process to make sure that the outcomes can be delivered, or that the applicant has the process and the level of effort needed to ensure project success. So does anybody have a question as I've described the process before it gets to this meeting where we are today? No? Okay. And I just want to remind particularly the board members, although all the applications submitted are matters of public record, if you would be interested in seeing the full application for one of the projects that are before you today, please reach out to me or one of my team members, and we'd be happy to walk you through what a full application looks like if you've not had the benefit of seeing that before.
It is a thorough process, I will say that. With a lot of people taking a look at what's being proposed and providing input and feedback and ultimately before it gets to the board. So thank you for walking through that, sir.
Thank you, Tom.
There's a question, I believe, yes. Yep, please go ahead. Michelle?
Thank you. Sorry, I know I've asked this, I think this question has come up before, but I was just curious. Is there a rubric that could help board members just kind of understand some of, it may not be a one-to-one because I know a lot of the projects are, they're complex, they're varying, but is there a rubric, a grid, a one page that looks at like, here are the things that we are going to assess as we make our decisions around whether to approve, deny, or defer? That could be a good support for board members to consider as we move forward.
I think that's a great point. If I may respond, Todd.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Yep. And the slide in front of you, Delegate, really does speak to the 4 primary criteria, but we do have a rubric. I love a good rubric too. Shows you the range of good to bad. I shouldn't say bad, good to better. Regional collaboration is really the foundation of Go Virginia, encouraging, rewarding, incentivizing regional collaboration rather than competition. So we're looking for meaningful participation of 2 or more localities. also collaboration with industry and other partners. The second piece is economic impact, and I would also say economic benefit to the Commonwealth. I know there's been a fair amount of conversations about return on investment, and we do use a fiscal impact calculator. It is the simplest tool, probably the crudest knife, if you will, but it does look, if the project is designed to create jobs, right? It looks at income tax received by the Commonwealth, an estimation, as well as sales tax revenue. And again, we take a percentage of the earnings of the individuals in these jobs, just to model, for example, any sales tax return to Virginia. We're also looking for things like targeted industry focus, because that is, again, a hallmark of the Go Virginia program. Each region has identified priority industry sectors. Leverage non-state resources, cost savings, and really well-defined outcomes or any product deliverables. Project readiness is the third factor. Are the partner commitments in place? Are the match resources qualified? And are they do they represent a true cost share in the effort? And are the milestones attainable and designed in a way that makes sure the project can be successful? And then the last is really sustainability. And just a reminder for folks in the audience that Go Virginia was concepted as a early stage investor. But the idea here is these are not designed to be one-off type of projects. The applicants have to demonstrate that they have a plan and a process to ensure that they will be able to sustain the effort beyond the life of the grant. These are 24-month grants, 36 months in rare cases, but it is a very short period of time, and that's by design. So those are the four factors that we're looking at in evaluation, but we'll be happy to send you the rubric that kind of shows regional collaboration from this level to that level, just to give you a sense of frame.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, sir.
Ready to move on?
Yep, ready. Please go.
All right. Just want to make sure there aren't any other questions.
I didn't see any.
Free if you got one you want to write down, send it to me later. All right. We've got 5 per capita applications that we'd like to present to you today. But what I'd like to do is just quickly recognize the members here who participated in our work groups. Board members Emily O'Quinn, Ken Johnson, Jim Chang, Reggie Agarwal, and John King. And thank you very much for contributing your time. We did have a number of subject matter experts this round. John Loftus, who's the Director of Sites and Buildings at VEDP. Abigail Patterson, who serves as the Manager of Sites and Buildings at VEDP. Debbie Melvin, who's the Assistant Vice President of Regional Talent Solutions at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Conaway Haskins from VIPC. Jimmy Jones, who's the Senior Vice President of CRA Community Development Manager at Truist, and Steve Cook, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. So I'd just like to publicly recognize everyone who supported this particular round of applications. Per capita funds. So for folks that may be new, or just as a refresher for those who are not, the enabling legislation in the state budget divides the appropriation into 2 primary funds. One we call the per capita fund, and those funds are distributed on a population basis. So when you see per capita on the top of these applications, we're really talking about those projects funded by the per capita fund, and specifically the per capita allocations that you made back in June to each respective region. Okay, so those funds are distributed. That is different than the second fund defined in the budget, which is the statewide competitive fund. And so if you're curious about that, I'm happy to send you the code section or the budget language. 3 of 9 regions participated in this particular round. There are a number of industry clusters that are represented here, including information technology, aquaculture, controlled environment agriculture, manufacturing, life sciences, distribution and logistics, and professional services. And these are diverse because Virginia's regions are diverse. And clearly aquaculture is an industry cluster of strategic importance for our coastal communities. And some of the others have more universal application and opportunity. The investment strategies or the funding priorities at this time are workforce development, site development, and infrastructure. And there was a project submitted in what we call the startup ecosystem funding priority type. Total funds requested are $3.9 million. The match contributed by these applicants is in excess of $2 million, including $400,000 in local funds. And by local, I mean contributed by a locality. And so when we say local match, what we really mean is contributions from participating localities. So I'll go ahead and move on and speak on each of these applications. The first one is called CARE, Career Advancement and Resource Education. This is coming from Region 6. This is a resubmittal, and the applicant is the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Board working on behalf of its member localities. So workforce boards are regional organizations by nature. Their boundaries do not perfectly match Go Virginia regions, but we have seen them be very effective conveners of conversations and activities related to workforce development. I say this was a resubmission because the application first came to us during the last cycle. There were some things that we felt could be improved in the application. The focus on industry was one of those, and really focusing the foundational efforts around building an employer resource tool and ensuring that employers were able to access and understand the workforce development resources in Region 6. Region 6 is different. It includes Fredericksburg, the Middle Peninsula, and Northern Neck. So probably one of our more diverse regions from that perspective. What they'd like to do is build new capacity to serve businesses and enhance career awareness and better define career pathways for each of their targeted industries. Those are IT, aquaculture, and manufacturing. They'd like some products that will have life beyond the term of the grant, and primarily a business toolkit to help employers recruit talent into the region, provide a skills-based hiring framework, and communicate on available credentials and training providers in the region, and also resources on how to screen, hire, and recruit workers. You can see the outcomes. Those are just during the grant period. Again, each of these projects is presented a sustainability strategy. The request is $307,000. We are recommending that this project be approved by the board. The second project in the stack is AI and business skills training for life sciences. The participating localities are Alexandria, the public schools, Loudoun County, and Prince William County. And they have all agreed to provide in-kind match and participate in an advisory committee. The target industry is life sciences, which I know has been of great discussion and interest to this particular body. Workforce development is the investment strategy they would like to pursue. The goal here is to increase the pool of qualified candidates for careers in a rapidly evolving life science industry, specifically to develop curriculum, credentials, and a digital badge that will help demonstrate that individuals interested in careers in life sciences have an understanding of how to apply tools in artificial intelligence, machine learning, for example, and basic business skills. This project was developed as part of a discovery process. There was a planning grant where life science firms were surveyed. The products here will be an open source AI and business curriculum. George Washington University, who has a campus in Loudoun County, has agreed to develop this curriculum and share it freely across the ecosystem. And then also the development of skills-based digital credentials. And they propose using a badging platform called Credly. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with Credly, but I will mention it for the sake of my presentation. The outcomes, which are listed here, 270 individuals trained, 75 credentials awarded, and 45 new interns placed. We are recommending this project be deferred. The total request is $2.8 million. The match you can see listed I would like to note that the local match has been adjusted to $48,170. And we feel this project has merit. Life sciences is a targeted industry for Region 7, and they have definitely emphasized the importance of skills development. But we recommend that this project be deferred, and we'd like permission to work with Region 7 to refine this proposal to bring back at a future date. The next project.
Todd, is it appropriate to ask a question now, or do we do
Yeah,
it at the end?
sure, absolutely. You can stop. We will vote at the end once you get through, but if you have any questions on any of these, please jump in.
Just a quick question. So when you look at the 75 credentials awarded, what does that mean, 500 digital badges?
Right. So a credential is typically a non-industry recognized certification. It's a non-academic workforce credential. So one you might recognize might be A+ certification, for example. So that is the credential. Digital badges are different, right? So using a platform called Credly, it's just a demonstration that the student has gone through the coursework. A credential is typically more recognized as attainment of a competency.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand. It says 270 individuals trained, 75 awarded. Let's say the digital badges are on their journey. So I'm just going to separate that.
Yes.
So is it 270 trained plus 75, or is it this 75 within the 270?
So our interpretation of the application is that 270 individuals total will be trained. Of those, 75 will earn the credential during the grant period.
Because I just did the math, and I was just looking at the request, and let's say the budget of $4.5 million. You just divide that by 270. That's 17,000 a student. That's like a kind of a master's program. So I'm just trying to understand. That's a lot to invest. And then they place 45 interns, and I don't know, maybe an intern placement is worth $1,000. I'm just trying to. So I'm looking at it saying, wow, like, are we looking to pay for 270 people their master's degree in this, or let's say a semi? So I'm just trying to, when I break it down to numbers, I'm like, this seems like an extraordinarily, I'll get my company to do it for half the price and twice the length. I'm just joking, but we don't even know anything about this stuff. But it just seems like a lot for a program, for a school who should have some stuff. I mean, I don't know, it seems extraordinarily heavy.
I think the working group agreed with that, Reggie, and that's why there's a deferral, not a recommendation for approval.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll keep going, but I'm just wondering when maybe in these presentations to break that out, because that to me is just, what's the ROI, for the 16,000? And then when you look at it, it seems like on the cabinet meeting. Yeah, and I'm sure the team already saw that, but I'm just, in my head, it's just like a lot of money.
Good point. Your math is good math, and they're all good points.
And I would just like to remind folks in the packet, and this is on page 39, there are some additional comments about the work group discussion. And I apologize, I probably haven't covered those as completely as I could have here. Obviously, the work group agreed there was opportunity to develop curriculum and certifications for industries in this life science industry. And AI and machine learning is a growing skills requirement across all industry sectors. And in fact, we reach out to our friends at the Virginia Office of Education Economics to actually do some data analysis for us at the state and regional level. So we agree. The ROI calculations indicated target employment outcomes for a specific occupation. It was not clear to us that this particular curriculum was aligned to help individuals achieve employment ultimately in those jobs. These are the types of questions that we'd like to discuss with them. I would like to also note that the applicant requested a local match waiver. And while we do have a local match waiver process, we want to make sure that request comes to you. It was a partial match waiver, and we want to make sure we understand all of that as well. There really weren't any formal agreements in place with any other educations of higher learning in Northern Virginia. We know that there is a developing ecosystem of training providers, for example, all working in collaboration to support the life science industry. But those partnerships are not yet formalized. And so I think it would be good for the project development team to take a look at some of those factors as well.
Okay, thanks.
higher impact. Reggie, I agree with
There.
you there.
This is John Peterson. If you could send me the contact information for the person that's kind of leading this application, that'd be great. I could try and catch up with them and try and get better
Thank you.
understanding.
Thank you, John. And yep.
Yeah.
Right, so
Ben Davenport. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So, the in-kind, I was not satisfied with that at all. I think that, that the need for hard dollars should be much more required than what has been offered here.
Hey, Mike, I was just looking for you. Oops. We got somebody maybe not
Yeah,
on
again,
mute.
if you're not on the board, if you go on mute, please. Thank you.
Thanks. My team will make note of all of these things, and we're going to be starting in earnest with Region 7 to see if we can make this application perhaps a little more competitive for your consideration at a future time.
And you might just want to say, sir, when we defer, we go back to the region because this has been recommended and approved by the region. So there has been a pathway forward, and we go back and explain the why.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. In those 4 evaluation criteria that I described to Delegate Maldonado, we'll have very specific recommendations again on how to make the application more competitive in this area of economic impact. Reggie, I think that's a fantastic thing to just illustrate, like our calculations indicate this is the cost per participant. And Secretary Slater, I know I've been talking with your team quite a bit about that as well. So yes, lots of feedback, technical assistance, and we're really looking forward to working with them. We actually had a meeting last week, midweek, to kind of have this discussion so that they could be able to anticipate this possibility. But again, it is just a recommendation.
Sarah, this is Ken Johnson. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So on those recommendations per pupil cost, are you all doing the industry based? And you don't have to go deep into it right now. We can do it later, but I think it'd be great if we had a range per industry, if you all haven't already started looking at that, so that we would have something to go by as we review the applications.
Sure. Absolutely. We will take a look at that based on the data we have available. And if we don't have it, we'll begin developing that, include that in the summary. Thank you. Good feedback. Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to keep moving if that's okay.
Yep.
All right. The next application as well is from Region 6. It's a startup ecosystem. This project is called the Expanding Business Ecosystems Accelerator. The Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce is the applicant. The participating localities include the city of Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, and Stafford County. And you can see the match is coming, the local match as in-kind and cash. The targeted industry clusters are agriculture, controlled environment ag, distribution, logistics, manufacturing, and professional services. The goal of this project is really to support the growth and competitiveness of small businesses, primarily minority-owned businesses, by providing a very targeted curriculum, skills, access to mentors, increase access to capital, as well as government contracting opportunities. They're going to be developing training modules, build one-on-one coaching experiences, conduct networking events, develop an advisory committee, and conduct targeted outreach. Go Virginia funds will be used for salaries, office lease, training sessions, contract services. Match will be used as well for contract services, salary, outreach efforts. Of the $155,000 committed in match, we have cash match of $15,000. The outcomes are listed here. We are recommending this project for approval contingent on refining core performance outcomes. And by refining, it really is a conversation with the sub-grantee, right, or the applicant, to make sure that they have the method to track outcomes and the means to report them, which is a requirement for all of our Go Virginia grants. And then secondly, we have a core performance measure called business businesses expanded, and we'd like to have a conversation about how we're actually going to define them in the context of this programming. And so that is the staff recommendation.
Questions on this one? Comments? Yep,
And
Secretary
Ms.
Slater.
Yeah, I just had one question. I think, Sarah, you just did it. They're talking about 120 businesses expanded, but only 18 jobs created. And so some detail on what exactly business expansion entails.
Yes, and I would agree. And based on the structure of the program, job creation is one measure. And they did provide some very compelling national level data on firms that participate in business accelerators for programs of this length and type, what they could reasonably expect to produce. But I think the capital access goals and the government contracting goals, so increased revenue, for example, sir, as a result of successfully winning a federal or state government contract. We did have some really good conversations with the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, who is host to the regional coordinator for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, just to ensure that this initiative have a very strong connection to a developing regional strategy, and that the accelerator services themselves were not duplicative of any other funded efforts in the region. And we feel that those questions were answered satisfactorily. I really think just a conversation with this individual organization, the Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce, to make sure that they have the means and mechanism to track and report these outcomes is going to be really positive for everybody.
Mr. Vice Chair, I had a question.
Brian, go ahead. You still?
Oh, sorry, hit the wrong button.
Okay. All right. All right, Leah, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Sarah, could you expand a little bit on the $140,000 in kind as part of the match, with only 15 being cash? Like to a little bit more detail on the services that are being valued there.
Oops, sorry, I'm dropping applications here. Thanks a lot for that question, Leah. As I mentioned, and in reflection here on the match, some of that is going to be provided in kind by Stafford County, Spotsylvania Economic Development, Stafford, and the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. Both Stafford County and Fredericksburg are contributing cash in the form of match here to support marketing, outreach, et cetera. So they're going to be supporting the Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce in the recruitment of firms in the industries that we've mentioned here. Remaining funds, there's a note here about program development and consultant services. So we do have a consultant who is going to be donating time to develop acting as an education consultant for this particular effort.
Great, and that is adding to kind of the scope that they're already doing in their daily jobs with this project coming in, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit on that, Leah, that's a really good question, is the process of match documentation and verification, right? So we have some very specific language in our program guidelines that speak to match, what qualifies as match, what does not qualify as match. And it can particularly get tricky when we do see in-kind match. And Mr. Johnson, I think you've asked this question previously. I want to explain that, when match is contributed, whether it be cash or in kind, we require a signed match verification form, which further describes and ensures that that match is non-state funds, which is required in code. It speaks specifically in the case of in-kind to the cash value, and we verify that and require documentation on the match as well as the Go Virginia funds expended. So I feel like we've got a pretty good process there. And if anybody's curious about the match verification process or any guidance related to cost sharing, please reach out. I'm happy to get those for you.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Now we're going to move into one of two sites projects. The first is a project that's called the Blue Mountain Extended Due Diligence. This is coming from Region 8, which is the area we know as the Shenandoah Valley. You can see the participation, regional participation here is extensive. The city of Buena Vista, Harrisonburg, Lexington, Stanton, Waynesboro, Bath County, Highland County, Rockbridge, Augusta, Page, Shenandoah, and the Shenandoah Valley Partnership is the applicant. And I believe that we have representatives here from the partnership. I think I saw one of them logging on to the call. The target industry is light manufacturing. The applicant is requesting $348,810 to increase the inventory of regionally significant shovel-ready sites. So when you heard Linda talk about tiering, the closer you get to 5, the more business ready you are. And I'm happy to, again, send details about the tiering structure in the Commonwealth. There was a previously funded Go Virginia project that elevated 119 acres to a tier 4. There has been presented an opportunity to elevate the remaining balance of the site, which is 300 acres, to tier 4 on the business ready site scale. This will result in the development of a 500-acre site located proximate to interstate, proximate to a regional airport, and allow the entire site to be best situated to be competitive if there are going to be any other hard costs and investments needed, either through Go Virginia or through a program like the Business Ready Sites program, although we believe this is going to de-risk any future investments the state may want to make in this particular site. Another component of this project is a Go Virginia funded study to create a regional industrial facilities authority. Now, a RIFA is an interesting thing. It is a legal entity, if you will, a structure that will allow multiple localities to co-invest in an industrial site with the expectation that they are going to co-share in any resulting tax revenues local from that site. So we see that really as the next era of regional site development, particularly for a site of this size and type in a region like the Shenandoah Valley. Go Virginia funds will be used for due diligence, the development of a grading plan. Match for this project involves the construction of a new water line to the site. So a cash contribution and a cost share, cash cost share for the proposed grading plan. We are recommending this project for approval. And the second site near, yes.
There's any questions on that before we go? Okay, I don't see any. Please go.
Thank you for that pause. The next project is in Region 8, Clark County, what we're calling Camp 7 site. The participating localities are Clark County and Frederick County. The site location is actually in Clark. This project is different. It's a 40-acre site. And the applicant is in the process of purchasing that actually from the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was previously home to a prison that ceased operation in 2014. So this is a unique opportunity to take a site that is currently not just underutilized, but unutilized, and restore it back to some type of economic reuse. VDP has been engaged in this process to discuss the revitalization. There are existing structures on this site that may have a future use. The funds that are going to be the proposed Go Virginia funded first phase will include work with the site consultants to develop a series of planning and assessment activities. They're going to look at site access, existing water and sewer infrastructure, the industrial hygiene of all the buildings on the property, and a phase 1 environmental stream, wetland delineation, cultural resources, geotechnical surveys, etc. It will take this site 40 acres to a tier 2 on the Virginia Business Ready site scale. We especially appreciate the collaboration between Clark and Frederick County. Really, Frederick providing access to the water infrastructure needed is critical for Clark County and really instrumental in redeveloping the site. They're requesting $170,000, and we're recommending this project for approval.
Any questions on that one?
Okay. Fantastic. Now we're going to talk about 2 applications for the Talent Pathways Planning Initiative. This was a special appropriation in 2022. Each region was allocated $250,000 to do some deep planning on 1 or 2 priority industry sectors, really engage industry in that discussion, develop an asset map, and really strong recommendations to strengthen the pipeline. The focus for these 2 applications are as listed. The first one I'd like to talk to you about is from Region 3, that is Southside Virginia. You can see the participating localities, the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance on behalf of its member localities, the South Central Workforce Development Board on behalf of its member localities, and an organization called the Commonwealth Regional Council, which is a regional economic development group / PDC on behalf of its member localities. They're going to focus their study on advanced manufacturing and controlled environment agriculture. They're going to define talent pathways for the industries named above. They're going to develop industry coalitions to guide and advise on the work. They are going to be using the U.S. Chamber of Commerce talent supply chain management approach to gather qualitative data regarding these industries and their needs, which we certainly approve. They're requesting $116,000, local match of $59,000, additional leverage in this project, and we're recommending this project for approval. And then finally, the BioBridge Talent Pathways Project. This is Region 9, Albemarle County, Greene County, and the city of Charlottesville.
Sarah,
Yes.
can we go back to the one that we were just on?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So this, in my pre-read, the formatting is a bit different, so I'm not exactly sure if this is the same one, but will any of this talent pipeline, oh, this not the one for agriculture, the biosciences one, are we going to come up to that one?
That's this one right here, Secretary. Thank you.
Okay, good. So why don't you go through that and then I'll have a questions. I'm sorry, the pre-read that I have is not the same format, so I'm kind of toggling between what I have and what you're showing. Thank you.
I'm sorry. This is the slide deck, and I apologize if we don't
No,
have
that's fine. That's fine.
perfect translation there. But I would just like to refer everyone to page 55 of their packet, which is BioBridge Talent Pathways Planning. This project is going to focus on biotechnical, biomedical. Region 9 has put a very strong flag on the hill on this industry, biotech, biomedical, definitely bolstered by the work of UVA and other partners, and Seville BioHub really acting as a project manager for this particular initiative. The goal is, again, to define talent pathways. Specifically, they're going to be working with industry coalitions, which Seville BioHub is an industry association, so perfectly positioned to bring those leaders to the table and advise the project. They're going to complete a qualitative and quantitative analysis of workforce needs for the industry. They're going to complete a gap analysis of the job needs to help the industries grow. They're going to identify skills and training for individuals needed to fill those jobs, and develop an asset map of the region's training providers who can serve those unmet needs. But I think most significant, really develop strategies and an action plan to meet future needs from the industry. We are recommending this project for approval. Go Virginia funds will be used for contract services, salaries, and fringe associated with the project. The study is the outcome, and obviously recommendations for the Region 9 Council to consider for future investments is the goal of this project overall.
Secretary Merritt, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sarah, how does this, I've got a two-pronged question. How does this intersect with, complement, or duplicate the VITAL program that I believe is going to some of these same stakeholders or recipients?
So you're right. Seville BioHub was the applicant for the Region 9 Project VITAL initiative, which we've previously discussed. There was no workforce planning as a component of that particular project. And we've tasked, in the guidelines for the sub-program, right, Talent Pathways Planning Initiative, each region to identify the project manager for these discussions. So the fact, in my opinion, the fact that CVO BioHub is going to be a project manager for conversations about the region's workforce development assets, as they are very informed about the needs of growing companies in the life science industry and are a bit of a bridge, particularly the post-secondary institutions. These efforts, we believe, are complementary.
Okay, that's interesting because I see some potential duplication. And another question that I have is, I would find it valuable for the board, especially for me, to have, when we have these applications coming, to have a list of previous and current Go Virginia grants that the applicants have, and any other government funding, particularly the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation and others, because what I see is on multiple organizations that are funded over many years by a couple of the commerce and trade agencies, and this funding adds up. And I want to make sure that we're being good stewards of this money, whether it's a one-off or especially cumulatively over time, to really go back and check in, because I just think it's really important that we do that.
We can definitely incorporate that, Secretary Merrick. I will tell you, for implementation projects where we're required to calculate ROI, we require the applicant to tell us exactly what you just said. What other state funding are you receiving? Because we want to make sure that we're looking at the total state investment and the results produced by that state investment. The application does speak to what are other resources that will be leveraged or ongoing initiatives. So I can definitely bring that forward in the presentation of each of these applications, so there's a little more transparency on that topic.
Okay, terrific. I would appreciate that. Well, especially because there's a lot of issues at stake here that, again, maybe the actual project teams are looking at and they're digging into it, but this bigger view of all of the funding and all of the projects, there's just also an issue of scalability. And I have seen, both in the private sector as an entrepreneur and an angel funder and a private equity investor, I've seen people try to do too much with too few resources, or just try to, or just that there's this mission creep, and it's very difficult to scale in any meaningful way. And so I definitely want to, I'd like to better understand. Thanks.
Absolutely. And Secretary, just so you know, we shared the full application with Deputy Secretary Segura, because we know he's got a particular interest in life science biotech, shared some examples of some finished projects from Talent Pathways Planning initiatives. So we'll do the same. And then for the benefit of the full board, we'll make sure that we modify our board summaries to reference any previously funded Go Virginia projects, whether they're completed or open. And just for situational awareness, we've reached out to VIPC and other partners to see if they have any other active grants at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Secretary Slater.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I tend to agree with Secretary Merrick. I think, some transparency into basically who's getting what from whom and how often they've gotten it is a good thing for the board to at least have that information at hand.
Thank you.
Good.
Reggie Agarwal.
Yeah, I was curious, and I agree with all that transparency. I'm going to ask 2 or 3 questions. The first one is, how many grants have we given out over the years for Go? Just roughly.
221 since 2017.
Okay, no, which is great. Look, I would say as a new board member, have we done an analysis? Because I'm sure a lot of these are just the same thing, just different industries, different regions, and see if they work. Like an example, and I was on some of the committee meetings, which were great on deciding, but we were looking at national data of incubators. Well, we've probably invested out of those 200, just making it up, 6 times in incubators. And what is the outcome of those? And so my question is, out of the 200, let's say 200, have we put them, just like this request, this is a pretty standard request, talent development. but again, maybe it was in a different region and it was in a different industry sector. But what is the ROI? And because altogether, how much have we deployed since 17?
I'd have to go and refer to that
But
number
just ballpark.
specifically.
Just ballpark. Like, what are we deploying this year?
We have an annual appropriation of
33.
$30 million.
Okay. So theoretically, let's say we've deployed a couple $100 million. Is that a fair assumption? So a couple $100 million over 200 projects. So that's $1 million a project, but just, we should have so much data on what works. And what I don't see, what I haven't seen once yet is someone say, hey, we did the same thing 4 times in a different region, different industry, but it works. Like Talent Pipeways, does it work? Because I'm a little more skeptical in some of the investments. I'm just telling you as an entrepreneur. And some of these, I'm like, okay, this is great. I just don't know enough. But what I do know is you've probably done it 8 times. And I haven't once seen that data presented. To me, that would be all I need to hear. Like,
I think you're going to be so excited about the next portion of our agenda.
Dashboard.
Okay, is that what it is? I apologize. I should have read it in advance.
That's okay. No. That's all.
I guess I'll be quiet then. So if we have that kind of thesis and results after 200 investments, that's perfect. Because then we can pick those areas and say, let's double down, let's triple down in those type of things and do them in different regions. So it looks like you've mapped it, which is great.
I totally agree. And we are there. And with regards to these 2 talent pathways planning initiatives, they really are designed to help the regions do a deep and reflective dive into the ecosystem to develop talent. But you are going to see in the dashboard and some other things that we're going to be bringing forward in terms of results at the program, at the regional, at the project level, definitely more transparency around that. And we're really looking forward for.
Well, I just want to make sure when you say that, not about this project, you understand, I'm not asking about this one. I'm talking about the 9 other times we've done a talent pathway project, right? I'm just making that number up. So we're going to have something where, hey, we've done it 9 times and this is the ROI in those 9 times. So we're confident this program is going to work. That's what you're saying? I just want to make sure, not on this particular project.
We are not quite there with specifically ROI, but in terms of achieved results versus committed results, we are absolutely there. And then we've got some new ways, and I don't want to spoil the surprise, for you to look by funding strategy or funding priority and also by industry. And of course, we as staff continue to iterate our program guidance based on precedent and experience, right? So your example, sir, and some of this goes to one of the committees. I'll give an example, youth apprenticeship, right? Which was an area where you had a couple of small investments where when we did the analysis, it was difficult for us to speak confidently about the impact of that effort. And so there was a decision made to not invest in youth entrepreneurship initiatives. So that's one where in real time, we are learning, we are iterating. And I think this idea of spotlighting best practices and saying, we need to do more of this is spot on. I do think we've had one project in Region 3. Well, we've had multiple in terms of approach, but I think GoTech, a project called GoTech, is probably our strongest model of a project that is replicated and scaled. And we can talk more about that, or we can talk about it now if you're interested. But I'm so excited.
No, we can just keep going. I was just trying to bring up the other 200 projects. What are we? Just
super conversation, and we are here for it. So thanks for that.
Hey, can I throw one other thing? And I'd be happy to personally get involved with this. I would love, like, just what my company's done is a heat map. And here's the heat map. You do a grid, right? On the whatever the Y-axis, it could be ROI and it could be success. Whatever. And then, like, say you have a vertical. Let's just say it's like what we're talking about now is talent pathways. And what you do is you put bubbles in there. And the bubbles represent the size of the investment. So if it's a big one, it's this, it's a larger bubble, smaller. Then you put a color, I don't know, red, white, green, or whatever. And red means it was not as successful, and so forth. And then you look at it and say, we've done 9 in that category. These are the investments. And let's see from a heat map, are there a lot of reds in there? Or a lot of greens? And if it's a lot of greens, we're like, hey, let's take this and apply this not only to that same, I mean, not only to other regions, but also maybe in different sectors, because we know the talent pathway has been our best ROI. And what are the things that are the worst ROI? Like you said, maybe youth investment hasn't been there. So you see a lot of red. And maybe you've done something, but visually, if you showed that, to me, that would be strategically, like, this is what works, this is what doesn't mean that's the future. That's just what's our 200 historic, or maybe it's 100 historic because the other ones haven't played out. And then you're just strategically kind of just saying that. And maybe you've done it, but I think visually it'd be great for the board to see that and say, let's triple, double down and not invest here. Anyways, that's it. But thank you.
Yeah, all good feedback. And I think, a couple of things. One is a learning organization, which is one of your comments, Reggie. That's important. We want to learn and apply, right? We want to learn and apply and repeat where it works, and learn and apply and not repeat where it doesn't work. And also the visualization of data. And I think when she gets to the dashboard, I think we've made some significant advances, but still more to go, because I like visualization of data, because I think it's very helpful to visualize data. Let's keep going. I want to keep going unless it's urgent to have another question, because we got about 45 minutes until we conclude the meeting. We still have some other items we have to get through. So if there's an urgent question, happy to take it or comment. Otherwise, I want to make sure we just move on just a little bit. Okay. Anything else?
Todd, I just like it noted. I think Reggie just volunteered for the program performance and evaluation. I think I heard that. I think
he's going to be in charge of data fusion, correlation, and visualization.
I love it.
All that, but I'm happy to help.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay,
right,
I think you're ready, Todd, to call for a vote on that block.
So let me procedurally, what we'll do is there any we like to get a motion to approve all of these as a block, unless somebody would like to remove one, and we'll take a separate vote. And so there's some, as you know, that have been recommended for approval. There's one, a defer, which means we're not approving at this time. And there's another with an approved contingency involved with additional information, additional work that has to be done. So is there anybody that wants to remove this from a block vote?
Well, the one that has the Institute IALR is the one that would administer the funds. I'm on the IALR board. This is Ben Davenport.
So Ben, you want to abstain from that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to do that separate, Sarah, for him to abstain?
I think the appropriate thing, sir, would be to pull that one from the block.
All right, let's pull that one out. All right, we'll pull that one out. Is there a motion to approve the other recommendations?
So moved. So moved.
All right, Leah, and I heard, did I hear a second?
Second, Cliff.
Okay, Cliff, thank you very much. All right, Cody, you want to call the roll on those, and we'll take the other one, we'll pull that one out.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Nancy Agee. Reggie Agarwal.
Yes, approved.
Jim Chang.
Aye.
Secretary Steve Cummings.
Aye.
Mr. Ben Davenport.
Aye.
Senator Craig Deeds. Cliff Lee.
Aye.
Haywood Fralin.
Aye.
Leah Framel.
Aye.
Kenneth Johnson.
Aye.
Delegate Kilgore.
Aye.
John King.
Aye.
Senator Lucas.
Aye.
Delegate Maldonado.
Aye.
Senator McDougal.
Aye.
Secretary Merrick.
Yes.
Emily O'Quinn. John Peterson.
Aye.
Boad Creedham.
Aye.
Speaker Scott. Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Delegate Torian.
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion's approved.
Okay. And so Sarah, just remind me again the number with the one with ILR, so make sure we're approving.
Yes, sir, absolutely. It's the Talent Pathways Planning Initiative from Region 3 that was removed from the block. And so we'll be voting on that one separately at this time.
All right, so is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve, Reggie.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Cody, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Nancy Ady, Reggie Agarwal,
Yes.
Jim Chang,
Aye.
Secretary Cummings,
Aye.
Ben Davenport,
Abstain.
Senator Deeds, Cliff Lee,
Aye.
Haywood Freeland,
Aye.
Leah Framel,
Approved.
Kenneth Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Kilgore,
Aye.
John King,
Aye.
Senator Lucas, Senator Lucas, Delegate Maldonado.
Could you not hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you, miss.
Okay, I must have still been on mute. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Delegate Maldonado. Thank you. Senator McDougal.
Aye.
Secretary Merrick.
Aye.
Emily O'Quinn. John Peterson.
Aye.
Fuad Creedham.
Aye.
Speaker Scott. Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Delegate Torian.
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, that is also approved.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is the program performance dashboard. Just Sarah, note 2:18 in terms of time.
Thank
And
you,
Sarah's
sir.
going to talk about the dashboard and the good work that is being done in that regard.
Yeah, just really briefly, we are in the process of launching what we're calling the program performance dashboard. This was a public facing dashboard that was required in the budget language during this most recent session. However, we were moving in this direction, and so we're really excited to be launching this particular tool. We are launching the beta version in December of this year. We do want to gather additional input, but I always say we do not want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. And we've had an internal project team working on this for some time, and I think you're going to see some things that really get you excited with opportunities for refinement. All of the outline general assembly dashboard requirements have been achieved, and that is our first priority, is to make sure we satisfy the legislature. But we built in some other features. All of the project data is downloadable. There's ability to link directly to support organization websites, and we've got some additional features that are moving forward. Todd, I do have the dashboard open, and I'm happy to click through a few frames.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to switch screens here real quick and show you what we're working with. Okay. Can everybody see my screen now? You
Yep.
see a map? Okay, fantastic. So this is just real quickly what the dashboard looks like. This is for projects that have what we call hard closed. And I see Reggie leaning in here and Jim as well. Thank you.
They
So
got the
these are
pattern analysis is underway.
I know. I can feel the energy. I'm here for it. And so these are projects that have what we called hard closed, meaning we have closed them from a fiscal perspective and they have reported final results. I'm going to tell you that we do have some toggles here. So by investment type, you could isolate. This is actually the funding source as well as the industry target. So if anyone here is curious what's been happening for advanced manufacturing involving Go Virginia statewide, this would be the way to do it. Now I'm going to show you, we can click into a region like Region 9. This actually shows the intensity of engagement. So the deeper the green, the more frequently those localities have participated in a project. It is the frequency of participation, which we're really excited about, and really gives us in the regions an opportunity to look at counties that may not have been, Rappahannock's an example here, as involved as others in some of these regional efforts. Now, what you'll see is a distribution of their project portfolio by investment strategy. So you can see for Region 9, for example, their portfolio is fairly balanced. 18% of their investments have been in workforce development, 30% in sites and infrastructure. Cluster scale up, which has been really efforts to grow an industry cluster, is about 29% of their portfolio. And you can see the distribution. What this chart is illustrating for you is 100% is the benchmark for full achievement of the outcomes committed. This is for all the projects for Region 9 in aggregate. Okay, so you can see any metric, for example, jobs created, that is to the right of the blue vertical bar, has exceeded the goal. So this is 100% achieved. This is 400% of goal achieved. You can also go in and look at individual projects for Region 9. Here are each of those projects. We're using some different types of graphing strategies to show their intensity of interest in terms of individual industries. And so this is what we would like to launch, really is the beta version of this dashboard, continued refinement, input from industry. And Reggie, I love your idea of actually putting kind of the old red light, green light indicator on some of these individual projects. And this will allow us, and we already have the supporting infrastructure behind this Tableau dashboard, to basically say, show me all of the projects that have exceeded their committed outcomes in workforce development, for example. Or can you show me all of the projects that have been successful in the support of the manufacturing industry or logistics? So we can start to have conversations about this kind of holistic approach and looking at the portfolio and working on best practice sharing, for example, or standardizing some of our grant program requirements where it shows value.
It's fantastic. Really nice.
Well, and I'd like to recognize Shara Gibson in our office, and then our internal Tableau developer. It has really been a labor of love, and we have got a grants analyst who's been working on this project now for about 3 months.
And it allows you, I recall, Sarah, from our early
Sarah,
conversation,
how often
you can export data, correct, out and manipulate it and do things with it, correct?
Absolutely.
Yep. Is that Ken?
Sarah, how often will you all update the data?
We can update it. We receive reports on outcomes quarterly, Ken, but because we're internally managing and administer this, we can update it. We receive quarterly reports a quarter after the month of the grant award. So I think we'd probably update it once a quarter just to see any kind of meaningful change just based on our reporting cycles.
You may want to put an as of on there somewhere on the bottom of the pages, just so folks will have that if you didn't.
Absolutely. Shara, could you make a note of that? Just make sure we've got a reference on each page that says this data is current as of. I think that's a fantastic recommendation.
Great job.
Thank you. And I can't say it's zero cost, but we did wholly develop this resource internally. So really a credit to DHCD and some of the amazing staff here and others who've contributed to the development. So.
Yeah. So the good news is we have the platform. The other news is obviously we want to use the platform to be informative in terms of all the questions that were asked earlier, to make sure that we are learning, we're applying, and we're seeing the investment returns that we expect on each one of these projects. And we can also ultimately visualize that data, make it easy to look at patterns and such.
Good. And I would like to note too, I see Liz Povar, center of my screen here. This was a tool that we shared with all of our regional support organizations, and they gave us a lot of great input. It was in part inspired by Region 2. I know Eddie Amos was on this call, and he's really big on using these types of performance management dashboards. And so we modeled a lot of the development of this tool after the good work that Region 2 had already taken care of. So credit to those partners as well.
Okay. Sarah, you want to go ahead? The next item is amended board policy number 10, the Hurricane Helene Business Recovery Initiative. Do that one quickly.
Yep. Absolutely. So board policy 10, for folks that are new to the board, on the eve of the pandemic, the Go Virginia State Board created a program for pandemic response. What we're proposing or offering to the board for consideration is creating a sub-program called the Helene Business Recovery Initiative, using $1.5 million from the Go Virginia Competitive Fund. We are proposing regions 1, 2, and 3 would be the eligible applicants, because the counties in the FEMA designation, meaning those most impacted by the hurricane, would be among the eligible applicants. We'd like to increase the delegated authority for project approval for DHCD up to $250,000 to rapidly deploy these resources. We would like to suggest that local match requirements be waived for this particular sub-program, and that we further release limitations on tobacco commission funds. Currently, the board authorizes 50% of the match can be covered by other state funds, tobacco commissions specifically. And then we'd also request the board consider opening what I would call the aperture, which would be allowing investments within the Go Virginia framework to support industry clusters in non-traded areas. And we know from conversations with our friends in Southwest, there are a number of non-traded industries, retail, hospitality, tourism, that were particularly impacted by this storm. And so we have experience at DHCD with this type of sub-program. If you see the board policy, this would be time limited. We're recommending that the duration of this program be limited to June 30th of next year. That could, of course, be extended at the pleasure of the board. So that is the decision before you today. And so staff would like the board to consider this. Todd, if you'd like to request action on this item at this time, that would be helpful. So thank you.
Okay, so we actually need to take a formal vote to approve this as amended.
Yes.
Could I ask a question, please?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah. Is this, can you explain a little bit more exactly what you're targeting with this money? You know, there's tremendous amount of money flowing around this from a lot of different sources, and it'd be a shame to spend your money on something that's got another very viable source coming that we don't have to deploy GF resources for.
Yes. I completely agree, Secretary. And in fact, the reason this did not come before the board earlier was because I think there was a concerted effort, in particular in the Commerce and Trade Secretariat, and my director instructed us to wait to see how things settled and where there was unmet need, right? And so these funds cannot be used to provide any direct grants to businesses or capitalize loan funds. And I think we recognize in talking with local partners, there are plenty of monies to borrow. But this would be actually to help, as we did during the pandemic, companies become more resilient, identify new markets, and actually grow their own revenues out of this situation. So we did discuss this proposal with Secretary Merrick and Deputy Secretary Beal. Secretary Merrick, I don't know if you want to add anything there in terms of this concern about duplication or state versus federal versus other resources. It's a good question.
Right. And so after the terrible disaster, I believe that every secretary went to their agency heads and said, how can we help? What do we have to offer? And we as a state don't have a lot of institutional muscle memory with disasters at this scale. And so Sarah said, well, we've done something. Here's what we did during COVID. Could this work? And I said, maybe so, let's see. From the time we had that conversation until now, the governor appointed Rob Ward, our Chief Transformation Officer, to oversee all of the response and recovery for the hurricane. And we are now digging in and learning what are the rules here to draw down on the federal funding. And sometimes when you draw down on state funding, you become disqualified from the federal funding. That's my understanding. Secretary Cummings, you are working much more closely with Rob Ward than I am on this. And so my understanding is that now we might need to hit the pause button. Is that what you're saying, Secretary Cummings?
Yeah, and I think Sarah, just really smart to check in with Rob, because I discussed this on a week ago, and he agreed it was a different plan. I think it was 5 million. So sounds like you've modified it, but could you just talk to Rob? Because I worry that not only that there may be other sources that could come for this, whether it's private through insurance or other SBA stuff that hadn't been yet figured out. And I also think that a lot of this is going to not going to be figured out in the time frame that you've put on this, which, did you say it was June of next year?
That's just what staff has proposed, just to
Yeah.
deploy these resources to provide immediate assistance. But
Yep.
again, this was developed, at the request, and we're presenting it to the board for consideration. It's obviously your choice to make.
Well, could the board look at this, Todd and Vice Chair, sorry, and say, subject to a conversation with our Rob Ward, who's heading up the recovery office, just making sure that that's checked off, that he's confident we're not going to be wasting resources.
Yeah, and we could do two things. One, we could just table it if we don't think there's a need. Or secondly, we could approve it as amended with a condition.
I'm okay with that.
Steve,
I think that's.
I'm really probably you, Steve, and Karen, because this is something I believe
Yeah.
that she was asked to respond to. So.
Yeah, we went exactly, and we went out with that alert to everybody early on, right after the disaster. I first of all really appreciate Sarah, not to be negative on this, because it's all hands on deck on this project, on this whole issue. I think it would be good to approve it subject to a check off with Rob. If the board so is supportive of it in concept and passes it, then just if we could say that, add that last comment, and I'll be happy to be part of that with Rob and Sarah and Secretary Merrick.
So confirmation and coordination that there is a need and Go Virginia has a role to play. Okay.
I'm comfortable with that, Secretary Merrick.
Yes, and I just want to reaffirm again to Sarah, your agility in wanting to help and finding a way to do it.
Okay. Ken, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It's more of a statement. The only thing I definitely believe in this. I think the need is there and we should do it. However, I do want to caution that perhaps we may want to have some language that also considers this being a precedent, and that, the language that allows for this to happen around state emergencies that would then declare this to go into effect on behalf of the board for any part of the state, versus picking and choosing winners and just, determining what's a disaster and what's not a disaster. And how we go about this on the next situation.
So my suggestion would be, if you're okay with that we move to approve this with the conditions that Secretary Cummings articulated, and that the staff takes it upon themselves to go back and look at language that we would include in the policy that's more broadly addresses the question that you raised, Ken. That makes sense? You okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to approve this as amended with the condition that the staff coordinates with Rob Ward in terms of the need for the use of these funds?
So moved.
I move.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Yes. Second.
All right, great. Cody, you want to call the roll?
Cody, did you get those motions? Who made the first, please?
I had one. Jim.
Okay,
Good.
Jim, thank you. Yeah, thanks. And the second?
I heard Ken.
Ken.
Ken. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman, Nancy Agee, Reggie Agarwal,
Yes.
Jim Chang,
Aye.
Secretary Cummings,
Aye.
Ben Davenport,
Yes.
Senator Deeds, Cliff Fleet,
Yes.
Haywood Fralin,
Aye.
Leah Frame-Mel,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Delegate Kilgore,
Yes.
John King,
Yes.
Senator Lucas,
Aye.
Delegate Maldonado,
Aye.
Senator McDougal,
Aye.
Secretary Merrick,
Yes.
Emily O'Quinn, John Peterson,
Yes.
Coad Creedum,
Yes.
Speaker Scott, Todd Stottlemyre,
Aye.
Delegate Torian,
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Sarah, the next item is the JLARC report and recommendations for implementation. Do you want to summarize this? Because I'm just looking at time, or do you want to defer to the next meeting? What would you like to do?
Well, if it's appropriate, sir, I would just like to remind everyone here, some of whom were not members last December, the JLARC completed a study of Go Virginia for no particular reason, except for they do as they do when a program reaches a certain stage of maturity. There were 16 recommendations and 2 policy recommendations. The chart in your packet is simply our tracker as we, in partnership with the board and assigned committees, are working to review, respond, and address any and all of the recommendations in that report. I do have slides prepared, Todd, that speak point by point to everyone, but I think in the name of time, I'll just refer folks to the packet. And please note that everything is, all of these items have either been addressed and are recorded as completed, we're using green, or in process, and again, assigned to appropriate committees. We feel confident we'll have the majority of this work done by the March meeting, and so expect reports from subcommittees on those items.
Great. And again, I would just thank Sarah and the whole team because they have assiduously worked through these items, and the board obviously has been involved in a lot of the discussions around the recommendations that came from JLARC to incorporate these into changes so that we can continue to learn and improve as an organization as we go forward. So Sarah, I want to thank you and your team for some great work. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Program Performance and Evaluation Committee report. The committee did meet on October 15th, as you may recall at the June board meeting. 3 interlinked projects that share the acronym VITAL were submitted for consideration. These projects come from Go Virginia Regions 2, 4, and 9. And represented an ambitious combined $15 million investment by the Commonwealth and Go Virginia in the entrepreneurial ecosystem supporting the growth of the biotechnology industry cluster. As you know, the board had a very robust conversation about these projects and decided to approve them contingent on a memorandum of understanding being executed between these 3 entities and several other governmental entities to solidify the very important commitment of collaboration on these efforts. A review and approval of the MOU was delegated to the Program Performance and Evaluation Committee. And I'm very pleased to share that after a lot of hard work by a lot of folks, the MOU has been developed as of today. It's in the process of being executed by all involved parties, which include the 3 applicants, their accompanying regional councils, and state government collaborators, including the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, and Virginia Catalyst. The MOU establishes a steering committee and a shared commitment and focused effort to further develop the biotech and life sciences industry in Virginia. The committee will be chaired by VIPC, and DHCD staff will join to ensure that Go Virginia stays fully apprised of emerging opportunities to strengthen this very important cluster in the Commonwealth. I want to extend a very sincere thank you to all the partners on this effort to support the biotechnology industry in the Commonwealth. I also want to recognize and thank our fellow board member, Secretary of Commerce and Trade, Karen Merrick, for her leadership and stewardship of this effort. It took a little time to get there, but we have gotten there. We have a great result. And I want to thank her for her leadership, and also Deputy Secretary Segura for his active involvement as well. At the time of this report, Region 9, which is the Charlottesville region, has fully executed the MOU and the grant agreement. Region 2 has the MOU in circulation for signature, and the requested grant agreement modifications have been approved. And we expect Region 2 to be fully under contract by the close of this year, which is a mere 21 days away. Region 4 is awaiting confirmation on the signatory for the grant agreement for the subgrantee activation capital. DHCD has modified each grant agreement to ensure each entity established conflict of interest policies and a process for reporting. Furthermore, the agreements include provisions for developing resource development strategies and establishment of specific fundraising milestones for each project to support operations, and the grant period ends consistent with, and very importantly, consistent with Go Virginia's emphasis on program sustainability, which was a big topic of discussion and certainly something that was very important to Secretary Merrick and Deputy Secretary Segura. So I think a lot of good work has been done in that regard. So the good news is we expect the MOU to be fully executed by the end of the year, and we think we will have 2 of the grant agreements approved, signed, and executed, with 1 more to go. Cross our fingers that might get done by the end of the year as well. And I would just say to all involved, thank you for your participation and support. A lot of work went into this, and I think we're in a good place, consistent with the conversations we had at the June board meeting. And again, expect to have really great results going forward. So again, thank you for that. Any questions on that? I know there was a lot quickly, but a lot of good work was done. All right, the next agenda item, I'd like to recognize our Vice Chair, Leah Freemow, who's going to provide us with an update on the inaugural meeting of the Regional Council Committee. Leah?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First, the other committee members, John King, Jim Tang, and Delegate Maldonado, and I want to thank everyone who joined us for the inaugural meeting of the Go Virginia Regional Council Committee. Whether in person or virtual, your active participation was important to the meeting's success. During this meeting on November 7th, we heard reports about the history of the program, an update on the work connected to the JLARC recommendations, and an overview of the feedback we have gathered through our interviews and surveys in the past and again this year. We focused, then the conversation focused on how to further Go Virginia's mission by strengthening regional collaboration, fostering innovation, and enhancing our state's economic competitiveness. The bulk of our discussion centered around 4 key traits of successful collaborations. That is connectivity, collaboration, innovation, and productivity. I'm just going to briefly touch on each one of those traits and what the themes were that we talked about. So the first one was connectivity. The group, and this was a virtual and in-person meeting, we collectively explored ways to strengthen the ties between the state board, regional councils, and the stakeholders. Key ideas involved including regular leadership meetings, improving the application feedback loop, and sharing best practices to ensure alignment and communication across the state. We also had a discussion around connectivity is different than communication. And so that idea of the richness of a connectivity was where we started, and we pulled that energy through the rest of the conversation. The next topic was around collaboration. The group emphasized amplifying outcomes through cross-regional partnerships. And ideas around this included things like developing a collaboration map, so kind of mapping where projects in multiple regions have happened, conducting sessions for rural regions, and reactivating or developing new tools like the Go Virginia, like the resource tab on the Go Virginia Foundation's website. It's been there since the beginning, but it's been more recently been refreshed to have different resources and white papers added, in addition to some of the tools that the DHCD staff shared with us today. Again, more of those things will continue to be built. The innovation conversation was focused on ways to stay ahead of evolving industries. We discussed how the group can create more collective learning around the impacts of AI, data centers, and agricultural technology. Just as some examples, that was not all we talked about. We plan going forward as this group convenes to bring industry experts, guest speakers, and project examples into this group, and could possibly form innovative work groups to advance initiatives in key industry sectors, as we learn more about what is needed to support the state's responsiveness to current and future opportunities in those areas. And the last section was productivity. So not only productivity as we work, collectively across the state, but also as this committee. So it went from 20,000 foot view of the strategy down to when is our next meeting. And so the discussion focused primarily from the strategic angle on building leadership capacity, The regional councils across the state all have concerns about the turnover in their board. And how do we train and kind of build that capacity at the local level and beyond? So leadership development trainings, onboarding, and even standardizing marketing and other tools across the region so we can talk about the work in the same way and with the same voice as One Go Virginia, even as we add our regional kind of brand to the work and things. So tools like that is where we focus some of those discussions. By the end of the meeting, we had come to some agreement, and I will have a recommendation here shortly about creating or basically enhancing the state board committee to an advisory group, which is allowed through statute and connected to the program. So we'll talk about that in a second. Currently, the DHCD team is finalizing quarterly meetings for 2025 for this group to come back together and meet consistently going forward. And a third thing is that a 2025 schedule of webinars and trainings for regional council leadership and partners is being developed and will be disseminated as soon as we have that ready. So as part of my update on the committee work, the committee is requesting the board's approval to formally establish an advisory group to support this work. This group would be comprised of one representative from each region, ensuring balanced input that reflects the diverse needs and the strengths of the Commonwealth. By establishing this group, we create a structured mechanism for consistent and ongoing engagement and collaboration with the regional councils and the state board. In this format, each regional council will be responsible for designating their representative and ensuring that their region's voice is heard and considered in the committee's work. Mr. Vice Chair, this request for approval comes as a standing motion from the Regional Council Committee. Thank you for the time today. Any questions?
Any questions for Leah before we move on the motion? Again, I just want to thank Leah and the new committee for the work that they're doing. It's important work to coordinate with the regional councils and to make sure there's strong coordination between the state board and the regional council. So thank you for that. Okay, because this request does come as a standing motion to create this advisory regional council advisory committee, we do need a second to move forward. Is there a second to that?
Can I ask a question? Is this a standing committee or is this a ad hoc committee?
It's a standing committee.
Thank you.
The regional council committee, let me just clarify, the regional council committee is a standing committee defined in the bylaws.
Correct.
What Leah and the team are proposing is an advisory group to this committee, non-board members, but acting in an advisory capacity to a standing committee.
Correct. And so because the request from the standing committee is coming as a standing motion, we need a second. Is there a second?
It's Haywood Fralin, I second.
Great, thank you very much. All right, Cody, can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Nancy Agee. Reggie Agrawal. Reggie. Jim Chang.
Aye.
Steve Cummings.
Aye.
Ben Davenport.
Aye.
Senator Deeds. Cliff Leet.
Aye.
Haywood Fralin. Haywood. Leah Framel.
Aye.
Kenneth Johnson.
Aye.
Delegate Kilgore.
Aye.
John King.
Aye.
Senator Lucas.
Aye.
Delegate Maldonado.
Aye.
Senator McDougal.
Aye.
Secretary Merrick.
Aye.
Emily O'Quinn. John Peterson.
Aye.
Boad Creedham.
Yes.
Speaker Scott. Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Delegate Torian.
Aye.
And Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, the last business item we have is Executive Order 42, catalyzing housing development for critical workforce and economic needs with interagency collaboration. We're very pleased to have Secretary of Finance and fellow board member Steve Cummings and Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Trade Maggie Beal to present Governor's Executive Order 42, which focuses on catalyzing housing development to meet the critical workforce and economic needs of the Commonwealth. So Secretary Cummings and Deputy Secretary Beal.
Yes, I'm going to let Deputy Secretary Beal kick off, and I'll just follow up along with Secretary Merrick as we get through this. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you. Very pleased to speak about this initiative. It's something that everybody in the governor's office has worked on closely with Department of Housing and Community Development over several years. And I was lucky enough to be here as we were able to roll out an executive order. This came out November 14th for the Governor's Housing Conference, and identify as an effort to identify some key strategies for Virginia to overcome our current housing crisis. And the announcement included a new program at Virginia Housing that will help localities fund middle income workforce housing. And so those of you who are interested in this topic would love to hear if you and your community would like to pursue something like that. We'd be happy to collaborate with you on it. But today, as far as the Go Virginia's involvement in this, we wanted to bring up a topic today in hopes that we might want to consider a policy for our next meeting. The governor has asked that all investment in economic development sites, so industrial sites, consider having housing plans as part and parcel of grant applications for industrial development to ensure that housing development for those workers will be welcomed and be ready to go in the nearby communities. So the suggestion here in opening this for discussion, wanting this to be an idea piece, that Go Virginia could consider adding a criteria for grant applications for site development that would make sure we are prioritizing communities that are ready to welcome workers and that have concrete action plans in place for that housing to be generated. We know that statewide, we're only producing about one housing unit per new job right now. So our economy is growing faster than our workforce. And it's something that we're going to have to be active on at every level, from local, regional, and state to address. And so want to bring up that topic to the board and suggest to you that there may be ways we can fine tune our investment in industrial sites that can make sure we're bringing on accompanying housing in the same time frame.
I've been part of the discussions about this, and I'm trying to remember why I was part of the presentation, Maggie. So I'm sorry, but I think this is a fantastic program where it's innovative package delivery of a housing solution, workforce housing, is particularly in rural areas, that we can identify opportunities for growth and then ways of attracting people to be able to come there and live, which has been a real problem. It's a problem everywhere, but in particular, some of the less populated areas.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Secretary Cummings and Deputy Beal. This is what we've been hearing from companies from the very beginning and long before we arrived, that it's one of the top three issues, along with energy and sites, workforce, but workforce housing has been important, and it's a really complicated, challenging topic. So we believe that we are doing something fairly innovative here with this executive order, where we're deliberately pairing site development with housing development. And we're doing what we can do first and foremost now, and we plan to do much more in the future. And Go Virginia should be part of it. Any of the site investments we make should have a housing plan associated with the site.
This is John Peterson. I think this is a great effort. It's something that is needed all around the state. But I would throw out the consideration that if sites are being approved for, let's go to the worst example to create it, to prove a point. If it were heavy industrial and let's just call housing don't go together, but I think the need should still be persistent. And I would say, is there the ability to allow a substitute to take care of that use off-site that is adequate to meet what might otherwise be on-site, a substitute site? In essence, I would just throw that out for consideration.
That's a good thought. Leah, do you have a comment or question?
You're on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. I think this is amazing. All the layers that we're working on for economic impact, and housing is such a linchpin to a lot of it. Just I guess a comment to think about if it's not already in the details of, we're using the money to attract employers to these industrial sites, et cetera. Is this functioning like incentives, like a community benefit agreement where the potential employer or tenant of these sites have to then contribute and invest in housing being built or supported, or is this, public dollars going into housing in collaboration and connection to the industrial site investment? We don't have to answer that today. I was just curious about the kind of the function of how that could work.
I can answer very quickly, Leah, that the existing program at Virginia Housing that is available to all your communities, and we'd love to talk to you about, is welcoming any type of match. So whether it's from private or local, but there has to be a match from that community. But we haven't answered, but I think you make a very important point about if we're going to do a grant for site development, how can we bring in the private sector?
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you. Following up on that, and thank you for this, for highlighting this today. We know that we've got a gap between how many housing units we have and how many we need, right? By about almost 1 million, a little less than 1 million. Do we have any targets? So if we're tying this to our work-ready sites, do we have any targets knowing how many sites have been approved, but not yet fully completed in terms of design, and how many might be in the pipeline that could address some of the gaps, so we know when other places where we have some priorities or projects in place, we know what sort of baseline shift there is? Does that make sense?
That is a wonderful question, and I would love to tell you that we have we have detailed reports, but they are regional. So we don't have a full statewide picture of everything in development, but there are regions that have done a great job of developing that type of knowledge, and that we can easily demonstrate housing in the pipeline that will be online in the next 2 years. And then there are some regions that are just a little further behind in that kind of investment in studying to make sure that their demand, that they know what their demand and their supply are. So it definitely varies around the state how good the information flow is.
Okay. Thank you. Just as a follow-up to that, do we much like this amazing dashboard that you revealed to us today, do we have something similar to track our housing efforts? That might be a Virginia housing question, but
that probably is better directed. I want to leave open for the experts. The one thing I can say is that the state does publish a 5-year housing report every 5 years, and it's due. It's in the final editing stages now, so we will have our best piece of information coming out in the next couple of months. So that I can offer, but we should definitely ask a real expert.
Thank you.
All right, Ken Johnson, last comment or question.
Sure. I do believe that this is a fantastic program, and I think this is something.
And you're breaking up a little bit.
From development sites, meaning that one of the things I was offered to consider was a radius clause. Can you hear me okay? I will type it to you.
Okay, you were just breaking up. I don't think we could hear you fully.
Yeah, if you could, I'll just type it in later. I'll just ask the question later.
Okay. Okay. Obviously, given the interest, this is important, and want to thank both Secretary Cummings and Deputy Secretary Beal and Secretary Merrick as well, bringing it to the attention of Go Virginia, because I think it is an opportunity for us to be engaged in this regard. So, Sarah, I assume there'll be some follow-up in this regard.
That's correct. With the board's direction, and I'd like my staff to work with kind of the other stakeholders as Secretary Merrick and Deputy Secretary Beal indicated. BEDP has already incorporated a question into their application related to housing strategies, basically to support the workforce housing needs of the site, right? The state's considering. And so what we'd like to do is work with BEDP to see if there's something that they've learned through this 1 year, I believe, that they've been using this question, and also engage our stakeholders and bring back a recommendation to the board at the March meeting about how to incorporate this type of emphasis into Go Virginia's site investment strategy.
Good.
Right, exactly. And then I just wanted to quickly ask, Maggie, it's my understanding that Virginia Housing is planning a roadshow across the Commonwealth to educate localities on this new program and to continue to incent housing planning to increase the supply of housing.
Yes, but we don't have set dates yet. It will be after session. So we're looking into spring at least of 25.
And I hope Deputy Beal that you're a part of that. Just for those of you who don't know, Maggie is an economist, and she's the one who really helped us get something over the finish line here, and after multiple efforts over many years. So thank you, Maggie.
Well, outstanding. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, just information item. There is in your packet, there's an overview of DHCD administratively approved projects since September, the September board meeting. You should be able to take a look at that. And the overviews are there. And that is it. I just want to say thank you all for your participation today. A lot of great feedback, a lot of great comments, and really appreciate that very much. I want to thank all the Go Virginia board members. Nancy Agee would say this if she were here, but just for your service over the past year. People put a lot of time into this. We're grateful for the service of the board members. And finally, I just want to wish each of you and your families a happy holiday season, however you celebrate the coming holiday, and wish everybody a happy new year as well. It's hard to believe we are ending 24 and into 25, but we are here. And again, I hope everybody enjoys time with family and friends and has a joyous holiday season. So with that, we are adjourned. And thank you all very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you all next year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.